So with the Raspberry Pi 4 and Raspberry Pi 5 pricing still being a bit ridiculous lately, I wanted to see if the more affordable Pi Zero 2 would be able to do some of the same projects. Actually, now that I think about it, it's actually around the same price as what the Pi 5 used to cost about a year ago, which is a little ironic. But regardless, let's do a quick overview of the Pi Zero 2 and of Pi OS, and then we're going to connect up a motion sensor, LED, a breadboard, camera, and we're going to build a couple of simple automation projects on the Pi Zero 2 using Python. And by the way, if you're new here and enjoy Raspberry Pi and home lab tutorials and NAS projects, please consider subscribing to Mackey Tech so you don't miss out on any of my future content. The Raspberry Pi Zero 2 has a modest 512 megabytes of RAM, but it's powered by a quad-core 64-bit ARM Cortex A53 running at 1 gigahertz. This particular model is the WH variant, meaning it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth along with a 40-pin pre-soldered GPIO header with the same layout as the Raspberry Pi 3 and Raspberry Pi 5. The board has two micro USB ports, one for data and one for power. Speaking of power, the Zero 2 needs about 5 volts and 2.5 amps. So if you already have a Raspberry Pi 4 or 5 power adapter lying around and a USB-C to micro USB cable, that'll work perfectly fine. It also uses a mini HDMI connector for display, so you'll need to pick up a mini HDMI to HDMI cable or adapter. I'll leave a few recommendations for cables and OTG adapters in the video description. And with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So first we're going to flash a micro SD card using the Raspberry Pi Imager, selecting the Pi Zero 2 as the device, and then the 32-bit version of Raspberry Pi OS. We're going with the 32-bit because it uses less RAM and should run a lot smoother with the Pi's limited memory. While we're here, we're also going to enable SSH, set a unique host name as Pi Zero 2. Set up our user and connect to our Wi-Fi network so it's ready to go when it boots up. And then we'll go ahead and click on Flash and let that run. All right, the SD card is ready, so let's plug that into the micro SD card slot and connect our power and our keyboard and our mouse cables. And one interesting thing you will note about the Pi Zero 2 is that it only has a flashing green LED when it detects activity on the SD card. There's no dedicated power LED. So if you plug it in without an SD card, you won't see any lights, although it'll still be powered on. Anyway, let's jump into Raspberry Pi OS and take a quick tour. Okay, so here we are in our Raspberry Pi OS. And if we click on our little Raspberry icon, we have our start menu and we have our programming, which we have our Thani, that's we're going to be using, or Thani, that's what we'll be using for Python. And then we have our internet. We have a media player. We have other graphics utilities, which we can use these to look at some of the images that we'll produce. And I like with the new Trixie that they've consolidated a lot of these configuration screens under one preferences. So it's not under 3 or 4 different drop downs. And then we have down here, we have a log out and we can power cycle it and whatnot. And if we go to the upper right hand corner, we have our little Wi-Fi. And on the top, we have our internet here. We have our file manager, which we'll be using. And then we have our terminal. So if we open up our terminal, and this thing is a little bit slow, it's not super quick. We can see that our host name is Pi Zero 2, which is what we named it before. And this is our username that we set up. And if we do an IP space A, that gives us our IP address right here, which we can use for SSH down the road. And we can check our SSH status by saying system CTL status, and it is enabled and running. So that's good. And if it's not, if yours isn't working, I'll leave notes in the description as to how to enable that and make sure it's active if you want to connect to your Pi over SSH, which is always handy. And if we open up HTOP, one thing I want to show you, HTOP is a way to monitor your resources and see how much RAM and how much CPU usage you have. So right now, as I mentioned before, this is a 512 megabyte board. And we have, if you look up here, it's got 144 megabytes that's in use out of 426. And so that's, not bad. If we go to our Pi and open up Thani here, we're going to watch what happens to the memory. It's more than half, so 256, 251. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're doing this. This isn't a workhorse. It doesn't have a lot of resources, so you want to be cognizant of how much memory you're using. And we'll do a couple of updates. So we'll do a update and upgrade. And I've already done all this, but I just wanted to make sure we get this done before we jump into too much stuff, just to make sure all of our libraries are all up to date. And then we're going to install a couple of dependencies that we need for the Python library as well as the GPIO. Because we're running on Trixie, it should have these. I actually, if I remember correctly, mine said it was already installed. Obviously, I'll include all of these in the description for your reference. And then we're going to install a converter so we can convert our video for our video project. And then last but not least, we're going to do one for when we connect this to our NAS to make sure that we can do a version of Samba that we need for Linux purposes. So now that we have all of our stuff set up and we have all of our dependencies, we'll come back in a second. We're going to take a look at the breadboard. GPIOs are configured for the sensor that we're going to use, and then we'll be back in here and we'll take a look at the first script. And here we have our breadboard, a red LED and a resistor, 220 ohm resistor, and a couple of jumper cables. And since the Raspberry Pi has these built-in GPIOs, I'm going to be using a female to female to connect our sensor to our Raspberry Pi, and then I'll use female to male to connect the LED to the breadboard. So for our first project, we're going to basically be, waving our hand like this in front of this sensor, and then this LED is going to be turning on and off based on the script we have. The infrared sensor is an HC-SR501 PIR. PIR meaning it will detect our heat when we move it across the detection area, which is basically this white plastic dome. It has these two dials on the side, which are to adjust sensitivity in terms of distance and how far away it's supposed to detect, and then it has one for delay, and you can usually adjust them with a small screwdriver like this. You just pop it in and turn it clockwise or counterclockwise depending on how sensitive you want. And then you have a jumper here that we've put toward the L position so that we can do more than one test during each session. On the bottom, we have our 3 pins that we're going to be using for the project. The middle one goes to an input sensor, an input GPIO, I should say, on the Raspberry Pi. We're going to use GPIO 17. And then it has a ground and what's called a VCC connector. And the ground goes to the ground on the Raspberry Pi, and the VCC is actually for power. That's what that's used for. So on some of these sensors, you have to verify which one is out and which one is VCC. You can see up here it has the ground, and then it has the out, and then it has the VCC. That's important because if you get those reversed, nothing will happen. All right, so it just snaps back on like that. Easy, no big deal. And the good thing is that once we get all this hooked up, as I have here, we have our ground that'll go to our ground on our Raspberry Pi. Our out that'll go to our GPIO pin 17, and then our power, which is our VCC, will go to GPIO 2, which is going to supply it with 5 volts. And these actually came in a pack of 3, which I'll leave in the description. Okay, so here's the Raspberry Pi. So we're going to put in our VCC or our power into the 5 volt on the Raspberry Pi. And then for our out, which is the middle pin on the sensor, we're going to put that on GPIO 17. And the way we can find that is if we can look at our little handy GPIO printout. Here is where the power is going to go. And then this is GPIO 17 right here. And we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the Pi. And then that's the GPIO that we're going to be using. When you count down from, you start at maybe the micro SD card. That's where the top is on the Pi. So you just count down to 6 and then you put the GPIO in there. So, and that's going to go in there. And then the black one for the ground, this can go on any ground on the Pi. So any one of the black inputs, this one is labeled, which is nice, so we'll just pop it into this one here. And now that is completely wired correctly, or at least it should be. And then we're going to wire up our LED. And for our LED, we're just going to put this in just like that. We want to remember where the long end is, which is the cathode. So we'll put that in like that. And our cathode is on this side. And then we're going to put in our resistor. And one end of the resistor is going to be at the cathode end. And then we're going to put the other. So the one end of the resistor goes on the end of the cathode. We're going to put in this yellow wire, and this is going to we're going to plug this into GPIO 27. And this is going to send a signal to the LED to turn it on. So we're going to put in the male end right in front of the resistor, like that. And then for the other end of the cable for the LED, we're going to put the other end into GPIO port 27, which is right below GPIO port 17. And I'm just showing you on the card there because trying to see what I'm doing with my fat fingers is a little difficult. All right. And then we have to put in our ground wire. And for the ground wire, that's going to go towards our anode, or our negative. So we'll put that right in front of the anode. And then the other end, again, can go to any ground wire on the Raspberry Pi. So you can see how the breadboard is set up here, and I'll leave images on my Patreon so you can see how this is really wired, because it's kind of hard to see with these thin cables. And the good thing about this is that we're going to leave this setup the way it is right now for our next projects, because the only thing we're going to be changing is we're going to be attaching a camera. So let's power on the Pi and jump into the Pi OS and look at our first script. Okay, so here we are back in Pi OS, and we'll go up to the little Raspberry here and go to Programming and go to Thani and open that up. Take a look at our first script. Okay, so here is the LED script that I have. And just as a side note, I did make my own directory for this just for organizational purposes here. So it's under Python scripts. And that's where all of my scripts are going to be located. I will leave links in the description and commands for setting that up, as well as making sure that your permissions are all correct so you can modify your scripts. Okay, so the script is going to input our GPIOs and our Pis up here. It's going to import our LED, and here is the PIR. That is our motion detector, and that's being assigned, as we said, to GPIO 17. And then the LED, which is on GPIO 27, is right here. And what it's telling us is that whenever it detects motion, the LED is going to come on, and then it's going to turn off after, I think it's like 30 seconds or something like that. And then while it's doing that, it's going to be giving us this nice little waiting for motion. And then whenever it detects motion, it's going to say motion detected and then motion stopped. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And now it says waiting for motion. And so we'll put our hand over, and there's our little motion detected. And we have our little LED come on, and then we raise it up, and then it goes off, and then down again. Sometimes it takes it a while. Okay, motion detected, comes back on. And if yours isn't working, you can always adjust the sensitivity. I'm probably a little close to the motion sensor here. So that is working just fine. So let's head back to the Pi board and attach our camera and set up the next project to take pictures with our motion sensor. Okay, so for project 2, we're going to be using a camera, And in this case, we're going to be, when we wave our hand or make a motion, this camera is going to take a picture. And I will try to make it an interesting picture. If all goes well, that'll happen. I can't guarantee anything. This is not going to be a professional photo shoot by any stretch of the imagination, because this whole setup is a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, so this is a version 2. It's a Pi Cam. It's an 8 megapixel camera. It comes with 2 different ribbon cables. One is for this one here, the wider one, the white one, is for the Raspberry Pi 4 and 5, and this narrower one at the end here is for the Raspberry Pi 2. So you can see the end is a little bit narrower for the CSI port. So to connect it, we're going to gently open our latch, and then we're going to put it in with the copper side facing up. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to turn the Pi over, and then it's still going to be facing up in terms of up towards the Pi, up towards the board itself. And then I'm just going to stick it in on the bottom here. And then while that is sitting there, I will close our latch. All right. Okay, and if we turn it back over, we should not see any of the copper showing on the bottom there. So that should be fine. So let's go ahead and plug in our cables and get this powered up, and we'll take a look at script number 2. Okay, so here we are back in our Pi, and we have the LED and camera script pulled up. And just to go through this real quick, we have our section up here which initializes the camera. And then we have a cool down of about 10 seconds between shots, so we don't have a million different shots. And if we continue to go down, we are giving it a format to record the name of the file that we're going to get for the motion, and that is going to be saved into my home directory. And then it's also going to give us the motion detected and motion stopped. So let's go ahead and start this up. Okay, and you can see that the hand is going in front of the sensor, and we are capturing images. And it stopped. And it'll do it again. So we have 2 files that we have down here. We have 2 image files. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at those pictures that we took. And again, these are not going to be professional grade quality by any stretch. So that's just Tux, and he's upside down. So those are the 3 pictures that we took. So now what we're going to do is we're going to load the final script into here. And what that script's going to do is it's actually going to take a video, and it's going to save it to our NAS. And so we're going to load up that script real quick. We're not really going to change anything in our layout or our configuration of the Pi and the camera. Everything should be fine. And so I will go ahead and go through this real quick with you. So what this is doing again is this is capturing the LED at 27, the motion at 17 on the GPIOs as before. And here we have our NAS folder already mounted, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So this is the NAS folder, and it's going to give us another cooldown. And here is the section again for our camera. And it's going to put all of the save folders into our NAS folder that we're going to mount. And it's going to give us a timestamp and date, and it's going to name it with an extension of MKV, which is just a video format. And then it's going to go ahead and tell us when it detects motion. It's going to record video, as it says here. And then it's going to go ahead and stop it as it is here. And I will leave a link in the video description as to how to mount your NAS within the terminal. And so you can have that ready for when you're ready to put that into your system. Just make sure that you have your share folder on your NAS already ready. So I'm going to point the camera at myself, and then I'm going to wave. And then when it detects the wave, it's going to go ahead and take a video. And motion is stopped, and it's recording video. Okay, and so it has saved to this file name, this .mkv. So let's go ahead and take a peek at that video that we just took. And here's the totally unglamorous test clip it just captured. Me waving at the camera. High quality stuff. And there you go. Everything worked out just as we hoped. This system is a little bit slow, just so you know. The Python does take up a lot of resources, so trying to load up these different video clips and the different images and having the Python run does introduce a little bit of lag. So apologies if you saw any of that. But starting with a simple motion sensor and LED, we gradually built this into a basic network connected surveillance system using Python, GPIO, a camera module, and we ultimately recorded everything to an S. Now, obviously, this setup isn't meant to replace something like Motion Eye or a dedicated security system, but it's still pretty cool seeing how you can combine a motion sensor, camera, Python, and a Raspberry Pi Zero 2 to build something like this yourself. And honestly, for such a tiny board with only 512 megabytes of RAM, the Pi Zero 2 handled those projects pretty well. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this video. If you found it useful, please give it a like and make sure that you are subscribed to Mackey Tech. I will be posting a complete walkthrough with pictures for each project as well as the scripts in my free Patreon tier. I will leave all of the commands and videos and cables in the video description as well. A special shout out to Dom and the rest of my Patreon supporters. You know who you are. And thank you all for watching. We'll be talking to you again very soon.